What's up, y'all, and welcome back to the recap. Now, today we're going to be talking about Bel Air Season 2, Episode 2, Speaking the Truth. Let's get into it. Okay, y'all, so on this episode, basically, your boy Will is out here trying to get Doc's attention. So it starts out with him playing ball at Bel Air, of course, and his coach wants him to do one thing, he wants to do another thing. Y'all already know Will is a little bit of a hothead, so he and his coach are kind of going back and forth, and all he wants to do is just impress Doc. Now, when it's all said and done, he ends up doing what his coach asked him to do, which is pass the ball. And of course, the kid is going to miss the shot at the end, but Doc isn't going to be too impressed with him, and he's just going to let him know, look, you're going to have to do something different. So that's kind of where this episode starts out, y'all. We're going to find out that Carlton's meds are going to be messing with his anxiety, and he's basically saying that the anxiety medicine is giving him even more anxiety. Now, Uncle Phil is going to talk to Will, and he's going to find out that, hey, he's trying to impress this guy. And Uncle Phil just reminds him, like, look, there are other ways that you can get to where you're trying to go, but you don't need to be listening to everyone, because why are they all up in your business anyway? I feel like Uncle Phil is already peeping game right from the jump. Like, he's already 2 steps ahead when it comes, to this Doc character. So this is going to be interesting to see how this actually plays out, because we all know that Will isn't going to listen. Now, we are going to see that Ashley is going to continue to bond with her teacher, Miss Hughes, and the little girl, I can't remember what her name is right off the top of my head right now, but she is just not having it. You can tell the way she is looking at her, the question that she asked in class, like you can tell that this girl is going to cause some trouble. Now, Hillary is going to ask to borrow Jazz's car, and Jazz just isn't trying to hear it. Now, she's going to try to give him a sandwich and everything, trying to bribe this man with the sandwich, and he's just like, But eventually he does cave, and he lets her borrow the car. Now, Lisa is going to talk to Carlton, and she's going to tell him, like, look, you need to go ahead and go for this Founders award. There's a reason why nobody Black has won the award. And she's just basically like, hey, you need to be the first, because, at the end of the day, Carlton is extremely smart and he can do it, but we don't want to see Carlton put too much pressure on himself, because we all know what happens when he has too much pressure on himself and he just goes back into that whole Adderall thing that he was on in first season, and that is not what we want to see from this season. Now, Will is going to apologize to the team, about him and the coach, having that little altercation in front of everyone, and he just says that he just wants them to win. He just wants them to work hard. But these kids at Bel Air don't get it. Like, they just don't understand where Will is coming from and what he has to gain and what he has to lose. Like, they don't understand the value of putting in the hard work. Like, this isn't a big thing for them. None of them are probably trying to go to any D1 schools or anything like that. They're probably not banking on basketball to help further their career, so they just don't get it. So Miss Hughes will end up getting fired, y'all. Like, from the very beginning when I saw her, like, I knew that something was up with that little girl, and we are going to find out later that a student told their parent that she was handing out books that were not part of the curriculum, and we already know who this student was. Now, the doctor is going to tell Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv that it is probably better for Carlton to go ahead and start to wean off the drugs now instead of trying to wait and do it later, because this would be an easier process while they can still monitor him, while they can kind of still see how everything is going, rather than waiting till he's old enough to do it himself and then he end up having a much harder time to do so. Now, Aunt Viv is going to find out why Ashley's teacher was fired. We just went over why she was fired, but she's basically going to call an emergency meeting, and Aunt Viv don't play when it comes to her kids and when it comes to what's going on at this school. She definitely steps up and she says what needs to be said. Now, when they tell her why the teacher was fired, she's just not feeling it, and she's just like, we gonna see about that. Will is going to end up talking to Jackie. Jackie is going to finally talk to Will. She's going to ask him to meet up at the club, and it is what it is. Okay, y'all. So Uncle Phil and G are going to end up having a talk. They're going to hash it all out. We're going to find out that Jeffrey had to be out of his son's life, and it was his choice to do so because of some issues that he was having. Now, this still hurts him very much. He still very much wants to be a part of his son's life, but he knows that it's what's best for him. It feels like there's a backstory behind all of this. We only got like a couple of pieces of it and not really the full deal, but I feel like there's so much more to this story and so much more to this character. I really like Jeffrey, y'all. So meanwhile, Will is going to try to sneak out of the house, but of course he's going to get caught because, you know, Carlton can't sleep. So Carlton is up and he's like, look, there's only one way out of the house. And so in exchange for him telling him how to get out of the house, he has to take him with him. So now Carlton and Will have both snuck out of the house. And because Jeffrey isn't back yet, they basically get away with it. So there's that. You know, Jazz knows that he cannot let anything happen to these two because after all, he is dating Hillary now and he wants to make sure that he makes a good impression on the family. He can't let these two get into any shenanigans. So he tells them like, look, don't be doing nothing. And I do mean nothing. So Carlton sees this little chick that he is feeling. She's looking at him and Will is, you know, gassing him up to go and talk to her. So he does his thing. And of course, Will and Jackie are going to hit it off. And then we're going to find out that Jackie is actually Doc's niece. So Doc is actually there. He's like, look, I heard you wanted to know some information about me. So they're going to chop it up. They're going to talk. So Doc is going to end up giving him some advice. He's basically going to tell him, look, you need to play for a team that appreciates you. Now, G is going to end up returning home and everybody's going to be super excited because he's back where he needs to be, y'all. Now, we're going to find out that Reed is still doing the most. Now, of course, we haven't actually seen Reed in this episode, but we have heard of him by way of Aunt Viv talking to him on the phone, trying to go visit him at the office, but he hasn't actually popped back up in the episode. So I don't know if Michael Ealy is going to make his appearance into Bel Air this season or not, but nevertheless, he is actually making everything about him. You know, this is supposed to be about Aunt Viv and her art, but he's being a complete narcissist at this point, and he just wants everything to be about him. So we'll see how this works out. So anywho, y'all, Aunt Viv ends up telling Ashley that if you don't disrupt the system will never change. Now, she doesn't make Ashley any promises as far as what's going to happen with Miss Hughes, but she is definitely going to try to help. Now, Hillary is going to end up telling Jazz that, hey, let's take our relationship to the next level because, of course, Jazz is really upset with the fact that when Hillary asked to borrow the car, he ended up coming to surprise her, and turns out Ivy was actually in the front seat when she said that she was going to be the one. Now, in Hillary's defense, of course, she didn't plan on this. Ivy, was like, just let me get in there for like a few seconds because she felt like she should have been the one driving the car. And so, of course, Jazz was upset about this. So they talk it out and they hash it out. And she just wants him to know, like, look, I'm not ashamed of you. So let's take this to the next level. I want to introduce you to the parents as my boyfriend. So that's exactly what she does. So she invites her parents over right then. Like, he doesn't even know this is about to happen. And they come in, and it's so cute because when she introduces them like as her boyfriend, they're just like, oh, Jazz. And it's just like, okay, this is going to be so much fun to see how this all plays out. Okay, y'all. So Carlton is going to come up with the idea that they need to fight for Miss Hughes. So he's going to present this to BSU and say, hey, we need to do something. Now, of course, Will is going to go out on a limb and is like, let's protest, and Carlton is like, yeah, let's do it. And then he's like, let's do a walkout. And then Will is let's call it a blackout. Now, there is another teacher there listening there with them, and she is going to pull Carlton to the side later and tells him that since he's the one who brought this to the BSU, that anything that happens is going to follow him. And she's basically just trying to let him know, don't ruin your future for this. Find a different way, maybe not walking out, So Carlton just kind of jokes it off and says, hey, we weren't really going to walk out. We were just, making up some ideas. But when he brings this back to Will is just like, look, I got your back, because Will was completely serious about walking out. It's just Carlton is feeling a little uneasy at this point after she said this to him. Now, Aunt Viv is going to show up to try to talk to Reed, but of course, Reed is not going to be there. He's actually going to stand her up, so there's that. Now, okay, y'all. So last but not least is Will bringing West Philly back. Now, Will decides that he's going to continue to play for Bel Air, especially after Doc told him that he didn't need to quit Bel Air in order to play for an AAU team. And so he's like, yeah, cool. He's still going to play for the team and he still shows up. But Will is not taking any prisoners. Will is like, look, the West Philly is back, and he gets out here and he brings his A game and he brings it hard, and he's not even listening to the coach. So I guess Doc was right at the end of the day, because Doc told him that nobody argues with winners. Now, Doc is going to be completely impressed with him, and Uncle Phil is actually going to get to meet Doc this time. Now, you can tell that Uncle Phil isn't feeling Doc at all. Like, he feels uneasy with Doc about something, and he's absolutely right, in my opinion. We all know that the only reason why Doc is doing this is because he found out that Will comes from a family with money. So, you know, there's that whole situation. And he tells them, like, any conversations you have with Will, you need to run them by, you know, my wife and I first, because of course they are Will's guardian. So anyway, y'all, that is what's up with season 2, episode 1, Speaking Truth. Now, this episode was a little bit of a slow episode. It was more of a build-up episode. So I'm hoping that next episode will kind of get a little more drama. We'll get a little more something happening with it, because everything just kind of feels like it's moving slow. So let me know what y'all thought about this episode. Let me know what y'all think is going to happen with the Doc situation, how Will is going to handle it, how Uncle Phil is going to handle it, and where we're even headed with this whole story. Is Carlton going to revert back to his old ways? Will Hillary and Jazz even make it, y'all? And will they be able to get Miss Hughes back to teaching at Bel Air Academy? So anyway, y'all, go ahead and get the conversation started down below. Meanwhile, if you like this video, make sure to go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to your girl channel. Now, YouTube tells me that you just might like this video next, so go ahead and check it out, guys. Until next time, peace.